Hello and welcome back to Thrive with Chrissie. So we've got another exciting podcast episode today. We have got a very special guest over on the podcast with us who is going to be introducing something that she's been working on. So Natasha has been working on building and writing her own novel, which is so exciting, all around the fitness world, the fitness space. So yeah, I'm going to leave it to you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Natasha and I'm a fitness coach from North London.
Oh, it's so exciting. I love this. And Natasha, when you got in touch with me the other week and basically the main reason you got in touch is because you had felt quite a similarity and a connection between sort of like my teaching journey and your journey as well. So yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit around you, sort of your background in fitness and health and sort of what's been going on previously?
Yeah, so like yourself, Chrissy, I guess what really resonated with me with your profile is the fact that you were a teacher as well. And that's why I really wanted to message you. And that's the thing. The fact is, I've not been in fitness my whole life. I was a teacher of 10 years, an English teacher specifically. At one point, I was a head of English. So that was a massive responsibility. And the problem was, I always thought that, as you work yourself up the ladder, because I'm a really ambitious person, I just thought, with more responsibility, it will help me, further my career. And it just couldn't have been further from what I thought it was. I just allowed the stress of working 12 to 13-hour days. I was going in and teaching Saturday school. And obviously, because I was a head of English, I was in charge of the whole cohort of like year 11. So the GCSE results of the whole school were on my shoulders. And do you know what? At the beginning of my teaching career, I absolutely loved it. And then it got to this point when I was at the peak of it, I suppose, that I realized that life was just more important. That, yeah, I was getting an amazing wage, but I realized that the stress and my unhappiness I was just spiraling. And it got to the point where I was really, really, really bad. Depression, sometimes not going into work because I just couldn't face it. And yeah, my mental health really, really deteriorated. And then it was only until my brother, who was a coach at the time and still is, suggested that I start going to the gym. And because I was just spiraling, I was in a place where I just couldn't get myself out of it. Initially, I said to him, weight training, how's that going to help me? How's that going to change my life? How's that going to change my situation? How is it going to make me feel happy again? And then it took me a good few months for the thought to actually enter my head. And then it was until I did my very first session with him, and it was never to do anything with it. It was purely just for my mental health. It wasn't to get lean. It wasn't to look a certain way. It was just a suggestion on his part that I'm only going to work and coming home and I'm not doing anything else. And he just said, it might help you, just give it a go. And then after a few months, I did it. And if I'd have only known that one day was to completely change my life forever, it genuinely did. Like, I don't recognize, when I think about that time and what I was, I couldn't be any further from that person. I don't even know who that person is anymore. It's crazy that people don't understand the changes that the gym can do just outside body aesthetics. It can change your life completely, your mind, everything.
I absolutely love that. And like, thank you for sharing that part of your journey because I imagine that's quite hard. So, teaching for 11 years, that's a huge amount of time, isn't it?
10 years, yeah, mad, big chunk.
And no, completely. And do you know what? Like, I completely resonate. You don't, when you're in it and you're in that stress, I always used to imagine like the teaching day as like a bit of a roller coaster. Like, the door opens. I mean, I was primary, so it's a little bit different to you, but I imagine the similarities. The door opens, the kids come in, and you're on this roller coaster until 3:30.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop. And then at 3:30, you're like, oh yeah, like I get to go and do more work now because I've got to go and do my marking and book.
Yeah, and everything else.
Oh,
Yeah.
and everything else. I've got to set up lessons for tomorrow. And yeah, it is a really hard career. Like I remember when I first started doing my teacher training, and my mentor said to me, and this will always sit with me, he said to me, you will never feel tiredness like it. And I was like, what is he on about? Like I worked hard at uni. Oh my God, there is
It's a different
nothing
level.
like it is a different level. There's nothing like the exhaustion you get from teaching. And I completely get that. So that's quite interesting. So you weren't actually into your fitness or the gym at all.
I'd never picked up a dumbbell in my life. When I was younger, obviously I had a lot of eating issues that
Oh,
carried
your
on.
audio's just cut off a little bit.
Oh
Can you hear
no,
me still?
I can hear you. Can you
Might
hear
be on
me?
my side. Bear with me 1 second.
That's all right.
Oh, it's my fault. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
Speak connects to the microphone.
Yeah, that's all right.
I was just saying, yeah, did you know? So obviously you weren't into your fitness kind of prior to that at all. So teach
No.
before that you weren't.
Yeah, so it was weird because when I was younger, my mum always said I loved sport. So
Mm,
at school, but the only thing I really liked was doing like sprinting races. I was one of the fastest girls in my primary school.
yeah.
So, like I'd always get picked for rounders and things like that. But that was the only thing I guess that I ever felt confident in, that, you know, I was
Mm,
really, really fast and noticeably fast for someone of my age. But other than that, until I stepped into the gym in like 20, I think it was 2016 when I actually stepped into the gym for the first time. I'd never picked up a dumbbell in my life, didn't even know what a barbell was. Like I had no clue. And I guess because I had a lot of eating issues when I was younger, like for a lot of my life, I suffered with a binge eating disorder.
really?
Yeah, really, really bad. So I always had eating issues when I was younger, like lots of overeating, eating to the point of feeling really sick and just not realizing that that wasn't normal. So I did do in my, I would say like in my teens, I was always obsessed with like dieting and
Yeah.
losing weight. So in terms of not ever doing anything physically, I would always try and like change my diet to look a certain
Mm,
way. But I did try many things during that phase of my life when I was like 17, 18. So never stepped in a gym, but I would try running and I didn't really enjoy that. And then I would do a bit of HIIT training and so like obviously when the body coach was obviously up and coming, like I tried a few of like HIIT training, but I never enjoyed it and I never saw results. And that's the thing that I
mm,
don't realize about weight training. It is the only form of training that will change your body aesthetics, which is why bodybuilders do
100%.
only weight training.
I
Um,
love
but
that.
until that day, I'd never picked up a dumbbell in my life. Didn't know what a squat
Wow.
was. Didn't know, and my brother still to this day has a video on his phone of one of my first sessions, and like you could tell that I just don't even know how to hit depth or anything like that. So it was a crazy thing because it's very intimidating for someone like, obviously now I'm in the industry, but I will never forget that first day. And that's why I'm always very humbled when I train
Mm,
a client who's never stepped into the gym before. I'm always brought back to that first day because
yeah.
I know what it feels like.
Wow. So if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you first got into your weight training and
So
started?
I was 26 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, 26. And I'm going to be 36 soon. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been, yeah,
Amazing.
a good solid nearly 10 years. Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. So this, I think a lot of people can resonate with this a lot. I think maybe a lot of teachers, they're not really into the gym yet. They're kind of wanting to maybe experiment with fitness, but life takes over. They're not 100% sure where to start. And I think if you don't know, you've not got that plan there, it's really hard to build that routine in. So if you, obviously thinking back to when you first started, you had your brother there to guide you. If you
Yeah.
have that person there and maybe you are thinking of sort of starting it and you've got to step into that foot alone. I do all online coaching, so my clients obviously they've got the support of the plan there, but they
Yeah.
have to go to the gym alone initially. What would you say to somebody in that position to get through the door, get over that anxiety?
Yeah, I would say like fundamentally, if you're in a financial position to get a one-to-one coach initially, just so that
Mm,
someone is actually showing you the techniques. And
yeah.
that's why, what you do with online is good because, you can send them videos and say, this
Mm,
is like this. So I think as long as that person is, I think the biggest step is actually doing it.
yeah.
A lot of people will say, oh, I'll do this, I'll do this. I'm very much someone, when I say I'm going to do something, I always do it.
Mm,
Not everyone is like that. So to be honest, looking back, it's always the fear that I think stops people from taking that first
yeah.
action. So I think if someone actually gets over that fear and takes that first action, as long as you've got someone there to support you, it could be a friend that knows how to
Yeah.
do weight training, showing them,
Mm,
even practicing, getting into the space of being in that environment. That's
mm,
a massive thing. I still remember that first session. I cannot tell you how intimidated I felt. I knew nothing of this world. I knew nothing about what they were doing. And all I was seeing around me in this gym was, men doing all these pull-ups, women squatting mad weight. And I was like, I've never felt so out of place in my
Mm.
life. Like genuinely, it's so mad to think about it now. I was so out of place. I didn't belong. But
Yeah.
I think, you know, for someone that can't financially afford a PT or anything like that and have that support, I think practice just bringing yourself into that environment, even if it is just starting off, you know, starting on the machines, if that just practicing being in that environment, and then fundamentally to avoid wasting any more time, I would either get a PT or a coach, join with a friend, you know, and actually follow good people in fitness. So, and again, we can say this because we haven't always been in the fitness industry, but I feel like there's so much bad advice out there. And I was lucky that my brother, who's a coach, gave good advice, always taught fundamentally the best, having the best relationship with food is really vital.
Mm.
Your training is going to be vital. So you can't really do one without the other. And that's always the approach I've had with what I do now, is that you can't really do one without the other. And I think as long as you're following the advice of people that actually know what they're talking about, they're not making you go on fad diets. That would be like the first red flag, I suppose.
Mm.
Are they causing you to have a bad relationship with food? Are they actually understanding you as an individual, like your background, your diet history, that sort of thing? But I think it is about learning the basic weight training techniques, how to squat, how to deadlift. And the thing with weight training is there's so many regressions to all the exercises. So anyone can start anywhere. Even if you have like a slight injury, well, you could always do like more lower body. So it's such an individualized thing. I wish more people were doing it.
Yeah, 100%. And like you say, it is the only thing that is going to transform your body. I remember when I first started getting into my fitness, I was at university, like I was never bothered with it. I used to play netball, but nothing like for myself.
Mm.
And during my A levels, it was such, I mean, A levels are just crazy, aren't they? They're such
Oh gosh.
stressful. I think that might be up there, one of the hardest things I've ever done
Yeah.
those 2 years. Like, so stressful. And I was from a very like poverty struck area. So
Yeah.
like getting the A levels, I wanted to go to the University of Leeds. I was determined to get A star AA to do psychology there. And that was just almost like impossible from that area.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
school, the sixth form I was at, like it wouldn't have been a thing. And I was so determined to do it. So I threw like my life into revising
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, it's so easy when you are in that stressful situation to not look after yourself. And I knew, I think it was an element of control. I needed to control something. And the
Yeah.
thing that I could control at that time was my food,
Yeah.
because I couldn't control what results I was going to get. I couldn't control what was going to come up in the exam. And I was just sort of cutting back on food completely
Yeah.
because I wanted to look a certain way. It wasn't until I went to university and started to learn about fitness, weight training, like you said, and following, I think, like you said, following positive influencers on social
Exactly.
media. I remember I was following right at the beginning, Chrissie. I think,
Oh, she's
she's
brilliant. Yeah.
fantastic, isn't she?
Yeah.
And
She's brilliant. She's
I
done
li-
so well. Brilliant.
yeah, and I literally started there, just following her journey.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, actually, she's a lot bigger than when she started, but she looks so much better.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she's got
Yeah.
curves, she's got her glutes built, like she looks amazing. She looks like a woman. And I
Yeah.
just felt like this stick, like that's how I felt. And I thought, I need to do something about it. But I think it sits very, very much with what you were
Yeah.
saying. It's
Yeah.
when I first started, I was so scared. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And as at university, I couldn't afford any support, to be honest.
Mm.
So, and even at the start of my teaching career, like my pay was next to nothing, so I
Yeah.
couldn't afford
Yeah.
anything.
Exactly.
And I just wasted so much time. I would probably say it wasn't until I educated myself with my personal training qualifications and was able to do things properly. I probably wasted about 5 years just in
Yeah. Yeah.
because the number one thing why I wasn't seeing results is because number one, I wasn't using progressive overload at all.
No. No.
I wasn't following a plan. I would go in and I would train a certain body part, but I would just do what I felt like.
Yeah.
I wasn't improving. So I obviously wasn't I was just kind of going in and doing the basics and getting the
Yeah.
gym session kicked off. That's what it was. And the third barrier, and this is what transformed me massively, is when I went on my first sort of like actual weight gain journey. I
Right.
wasn't eating enough food at all. Like I was constantly in this sort of like my calories were just so low all the time. Like I don't think I ever hit 2,000
Yeah.
calories, and
Wow. Yeah.
that was just normal for me to
Yeah.
eat. Like I was just used to it, and then I wasn't seeing any change, and I was like, why have I got to eat less? And it wasn't until I started eating more that I
Yes.
actually saw some real
Yeah.
results and changes in my body.
Yeah.
So it's about doing the right things, like you said, isn't it? And really not wasting your time with the
Yeah.
journey.
And you know what I realized as well, and that's really interesting what you said about how, you know, you learn all the things at uni and then obviously you started thinking about your nutrition. For me, I feel like fitness is always a stage. And I feel like even now, no matter how many years you're in it, there's always a stage to something else. And initially for me, as you know, it was just a hobby. It wasn't to
Mhm.
look any different. It wasn't to drop weight. It was just to get me out the house to try and make me feel better for that 1 hour of the day. And then it was only until I started doing that consistently that my brother was like, right, okay, I think now that you've done this,
Yeah.
step is this. And it was a very slow and progressive journey, but you're right, same as yourself, until I really understood nutrition. You know, like a lot of people think they understand nutrition. They don't really understand how much protein they should be having. They don't
Yeah.
understand their individual number. They don't understand that for you to put on weight or build muscle, you do have to be at least maintenance at the very least.
Yeah.
And it was only through him of really understanding nutrition, I was like, whoa, that was when I then started seeing even more results aesthetically just by changing the nutrition, because I was already for X amount of months, even up until a year, like just training for the sake of training. And at first it was twice. Then I loved it so much and I felt that buzz. I was like, right, let's up it to 4 times. And then I stayed with my brother like 4 sessions a week for, well, up until I started like bodybuilding. So it
Wow.
is a stepping stone. And I feel like for a lot of people, they want to rush and they want to rush it and they want instant results, because I guess we're in a world and a society now where everything is instant, isn't it? Everything.
100%.
So important to have that delayed gratification. And that's what has made me, I think, the way that I am as a person, with how I am with clients, with my own goals, that you do have to nurture that journey and not think about everything being so instant and quick. And it is, you know, you will get the best results if it's done slowly and gradually over time, because then that's how you build lifetime habits, isn't it?
100%. And that's what I always try and say to clients. Like, it's very easy to do and think, oh, I want to look like this for a holiday, but I'm
Yeah.
it will not last.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is a tricky one. It's really, really hard. And I think sometimes it's good to get yourself into it, to have that thing
Mhm.
to work towards and to throw yourself into it. But if you want
Definitely.
to see real sustainable results, you need to be doing something and working with someone properly for at least
Yeah.
6 months. And I
I
think
agree.
at least 6 months,
Definitely.
because you build the habits, you start to build the knowledge, you start to understand where and why and what's happening. It's a long-term thing. So let's dive into sort of your bodybuilding journey. I have never ever done anything like that. So my approach to health and fitness is very much more lifestyle,
It should
be
be.
good.
And
And
it should be.
yeah, and I've done a few photo shoots, but I mean, never to the point where I've been a few
Yeah.
fat loss days. I've got a photo shoot coming up in the next
Yeah.
6 weeks, so I'm in a bit of a fat loss
Right.
phase at the minute.
Yeah.
But it's not like an extreme thing where I'm going to be completely shredded.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, but I am so intrigued about this world because I have seen so much around it, and
Yeah.
I would just, yeah, tell us about your journey. So how did you
Yeah.
do that, and what was it like?
So yeah, bodybuilding is crazy.
Mhm.
And you know what? Something that's really valid about what you said, and something I stand by now. Don't get me wrong. I have had clients that have wanted to compete in bodybuilding. One who's actually got through to the final stage, she came second. But
Wow.
I've actually trained 2 other clients that
Wow.
only made it up to a certain stage.
Yeah.
And you know what's really, really important is I will always say I will never slate bodybuilding because it's got me to where I am now.
Mm.
But am I open and real and raw and honest about it? 100%, which is why my book is coming out, because not many people who have done bodybuilding will tell you as it is, and they'll
Mm.
only give you one side. So in terms of my journey, so at this point, I've been training for maybe a year,
Mm.
consistently. My body shape was starting to change, and it was never something I was wanting to go into, believe it or not. When my body shape started to change and people saw me training really hard, what really planted the seed was every time I went to the gym, the question that I would often get by people, by friends, by people just training around me was, oh, are you training to compete? And I was like, no. And I'd be like, no, don't be silly. And my instant response was, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. No, don't be silly. And I'm not joking. It got to the point where at least 5 or 6 people had said it. that's when the seed was planted. And I was like, why do these people think that I'm even capable of it? And I guess although I'd come a long way in terms of my confidence, I was at this point where I've been training a year, I knew the techniques, I still had my brother there though, just to keep me accountable, but I knew what I was doing. And I just thought, oh my gosh, maybe I could. And it was only until those people said it that it was sitting inside myself for quite a while, quite a few weeks. And I was thinking, do you know what? I think I do want to do it. And it was never to get, oh, I want to get a six pack or I want to be super shredded. Honestly, it was more something like, can I? I want to see if I can. And if I fail, it doesn't matter, but at least I've tried. And it was one of those life-changing decisions, I suppose, where I was like, if I don't try this, I will always regret it, just to see what the outcome is. So I remember building up the courage at this point to say to my brother, can you coach me? Because by this point, he'd done X amount of shows. He'd trained people for shows. And you won't believe his instant response was, no, I don't want you to do it.
Yeah.
I was so taken aback. I was like, what? I was thinking, I've been training with you for a year. I felt a little bit disappointed in his response. But now, do I really understand? And you know what? The woman that did really well, my client that did really well and came second in her shows, I'd been training her for X amount of years. And I was the exact same response when she first told me. In fact, anyone now who asks me to coach them for bodybuilding, I do try and put them off as much as possible so they fully understand what it's going to mean, what it's going to do to their body. So my brother went off on a tangent, gave this whole massive speech in our session going, the reason why I think no is because you're never going to look at food the same. You're going to lose your periods. Everything's going to be numbers to you. He goes, I just don't know. I don't think you should do it. And I was like, and I just remember it sitting with me and I just thought, okay, he's told me everything. So now it's my choice whether I go down that dark road, well, bittersweet road, I suppose, or not. And when I said, look, I don't care how long it takes, I want to do it. Like, no matter what you say, I've taken on board everything you've said. I'm willing to accept these changes that are going to happen, which will be detrimental, quite a lot to your health and everything else. Because that's what you mean. People think that bodybuilding is a healthy sport. It's actually not a healthy sport. It's not at all. And then when he said all of these things, he goes, right, okay, you want to do it? Fair enough. He goes, it's going to take you 2 years. And I was like, okay. Again, what I go back to about the delayed gratification, I didn't care how long it took. I was going to do it. He's like, right, so this is your journey. You're going to have to do a 2-year building phase. And then you're going to have to do roughly about 6-month cut. I was like, cool. So the journey into bodybuilding was actually putting on shitloads of muscle, loads of weight. And it took 2 years. I was in a muscle building phase, putting on weight for about 2 years.
Wow.
Because he was like, I don't want you to, you can't look skinny on stage. You don't have enough muscle on you. I didn't have enough muscle on me. I've been training for a year and my body aesthetics had changed, but nowhere near like bodybuilding standard. So that was a hard journey. It was hard. People think, oh, you're eating more, it's fine, you're going for meals out. It's actually definitely more technical than you might think. You still have calories, you still have macros, you still have to track. I still had to track my weight every day. By that point, my training split had changed. So I was having to do 3 lower body sessions, 1 upper body, because before I started my building phase, we took pictures of myself at my leanest state. And it's only by getting down to your leanest state do you then work out roughly, because if that's the lowest I'd ever been, for example, my brother would work out, right, I'm guessing if you weigh this much now, your stage weight would be an extra, it might be like 15 pounds lighter. You know what I mean? So yeah, the building phase was difficult because as a woman, no woman wants to put on weight, do they? No. Even if you're putting on muscle. And my brother did it in a very good way. And, facing that, the fact that you have to put on weight, you have to put on muscle, you're tracking everything. I had to make sure that I wasn't putting on weight too quickly, which is why there was so much monitoring, just as much monitoring as I would say the cutting phase, because he had to make sure you better not be putting on more than 0.25 of a pound every week. Like, it's very, very technical.
Yeah.
Protein needed to be high, carbs needed to be high. It's strategically, you have to eat around your workout so that you're best maximizing like your muscle mass and things like that. And it was horrible. getting rid of clothes that, because you're like over a size heavier, I was ripping coats left, right, and center. It was winter, and every time I put on a winter coat, always under the armpits, ripped, throwing clothes away. It was actually quite depressing because you don't look like you train. So if someone was to say, "Oh, what are you training for?" Bodybuilding, they'd be like,
Yeah.
they'd be like, "Really?"
Yeah, no, I completely get that. Wow. So
How
I
did you feel when you had to put on weight? Did you feel a little bit like, obviously it wouldn't be to that extreme where you're like,
yeah. No, definitely. And I completely resonate with that. And I think, first of all, like this just goes back in the longevity of training. You knew you had about a 3 year, it sounds like a 3 year cycle,
yeah,
isn't it, to
yeah,
get you to that point. And that building phase is so important. And this is what I try and instill into clients a little bit around
mm,
having that time where you're allowing yourself to actually build muscle.
definitely.
Um, yeah, I found it's very difficult gaining weight, isn't it?
It
So
is.
mine probably wasn't as long a journey as that. And mine, I actually did mine during COVID time as well, which
Oh,
was probably better in a way because
yeah,
I wasn't going out as
yeah,
much. You don't, I probably was wearing like joggers a lot
yeah,
and
all the time.
clothes a lot because like you're not going to wear jeans are you around the
No,
house.
absolutely not.
The gyms were open during the time. It was like I was able to go to the gym, so that was good. So it was kind of like it must have been like 2021, something like that. Um, and yeah, I did it for probably around, I'd say about a year. I did the building for the gaining phase, maybe
Really?
9 months to a year. And I saw immediate changes in my body. I think my body needed it. It was craving it, like absolutely craving eating more. And I think at first I probably weirdly started to see a bit more like definition. I think because
Yeah,
I was getting stronger,
yeah.
I was noticing the progress in my workouts, like I was able to lift more, lift heavier, like I just felt really, really strong. But in terms of like the hard part for me, is when you get to the end of it, you're eating a lot of food.
Oh,
You know?
God, I'll never forget that end. I don't
You,
know about you, but I was really at the point. And this is, and my brother always said, this is how you know for bodybuilding when you've done your building phase, right? You've done
yeah,
it long enough, you've put on enough weight gradually over time. But I will honestly, Chrissy, I was getting to the point. I remember chewing and swallowing, and I wasn't even hungry. It was
yeah,
horrible.
honestly,
Oh,
yeah.
just eat it. Just eat. Like, it's such a weird thing when you're not hungry, but you're literally having a massive meal in front of you because you have to eat it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the heart. It's weird. It's almost like the other way, isn't it, with eating?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like yeah, it's strange. And it's for me, what I struggled with was like the discomfort of eating more.
Oh,
Because like I'm quite prone to sort of like IBS and like my
yeah.
stomach is quite sensitive anyway. And a big trigger for me is overeating in one
Yeah.
meal, like eating too much and being too full. It's a horrible feeling. And the digestion side of it, I found.
Um,
Do you know, like waking up and just feeling bloated? Like it's horrible
yes.
waking up feeling you can
Yeah.
still feel the food in your stomach from the night before. Like it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah, it is horrible. And you know what? Other things that people don't realize when you've done a building phase to that extent is I was getting sweats. I was sweating for no reason. It wouldn't even be really hot. You're sweating in the night. I'd be sweating from all the carbs.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, my clothes not fitting me was like the least of my worries, but all these other things, you're walking around a bit breathless as well, which
Yeah,
is crazy. Like I felt, oh my gosh, is this what like an overweight because technically I was overweight by that point, technically.
yeah,
But like obviously a lot of muscle mass, but you wouldn't see the muscle mass till I cut. But
yeah,
yeah, feeling breathless and feeling like tired as well from
yeah.
carbs and oh horrible.
No, definitely. And I think I needed to do it because I was probably slightly underweight before and it probably got
Yeah,
me more up to a
yeah.
healthier weight. But I think, like you said, I remember the hardest part, and I remember this so clearly. We were going on holiday to Bali that summer, and I ended my building phase in I think it was like the April time, and I was like, I'll end it here, but I didn't really then, I kind of just maintained it sort of thing. I
Yeah.
didn't really then jump into a cut or a massive fat loss phase. And yeah, I remember this was probably like the first big holiday. It had been post-COVID and things like that. And I had to buy like a whole new holiday wardrobe. Like none of my, you don't put your shorts on, do you, for the winter?
Yeah, I
Um,
know exactly what you mean.
I was like, none of these shorts, I can't even do them up. Like, I was probably too much on the smaller end when I was my smallest version. I was probably more of a 6 to 8, a size 6 to 8,
Yeah, yeah,
which is probably not, I'm quite tall, I'm 5'6", so
yeah,
actually it's probably not healthy that way
yeah,
anyway. But where I got to, I was definitely like a 10.
yeah.
I had to buy all, like, do a whole new order of all these clothes.
I know.
And and I didn't feel like I felt good in a bikini. Like I felt like my glutes were the best they'd ever
Would
looked,
have been,
like
yeah.
100%. But like you just feel a bit like in a bikini. I was like, I don't
Yes.
owned like,
Confident.
and we all gain weight in different places. And you know, for me, it's my face. It's straight to my face. And like I think that was the hardest part. I was like, I just feel like my face looks a bit.
Honestly, I always say to clients when they're like, "Can I get?" I'm like, "Look, when you drop fat, you dependent on your genetics. I can't pick and
Yeah,
choose where." And that's the thing with me. It was just like whenever I lose weight, my face is the first people that are like, "Oh my gosh, you've lost weight." For some reason,
me
it's the
too.
first place.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
everything else, to be honest, mine is kind of just a bit of everything. That's like in my arms, a bit
yeah.
in the face, tummy area, 100%, and yeah, it's such a weird concept. But do you know what I think is really important as well? Doing what we've done, when you get a client that does feel, not very confident, feels a bit breathless, feels a bit crap about themselves, they're overeating. It's interesting that I know what that feels like, to feel
Mhm.
heavy, to feel breathless, to feel a little bit unfit. Because I did, even though I was training 4 days a week, I was unfit. I was strong as hell, the strongest I'd ever been,
Yeah,
ever,
you
ever.
you
But
couldn't run a
I
5K.
wasn't fit. No, I was breathless just walking down the road.
Mm,
So I think it was important that it taught me a lot about, what it's like to be in a client's shoes, definitely, who feel uncomfortable in their body. And I didn't feel confident in my body, even though knowing, okay, in like a year's time or so, I'll be on stage. And at the time, it's so far away, you can't
yeah,
imagine it.
yeah,
But, and then I'm like, hey, just get through this phase. And I just kept reminding myself, why am I doing this?
yeah.
Well, I'm doing this because I'm doing this because, and that was the only thing that kind of got me through that. It wasn't going to be like that forever, even though that 2 year building
Mm,
phase felt like forever. And it was, quite a long period of time.
yeah.
It wasn't going to be forever. And like one day I'm going to feel confident again. And
Wow.
yeah, it was hard. It was hard.
Yeah.
Weird
No,
phase.
sure. So I imagine, so that's the start. This is the bit I'm really interested in. So let's talk about the actual like the fat loss, because I imagine that was harder
Yeah.
maybe. So
Well,
yeah, let's go through that pre-show, because this is just something I've never spoke about on my podcast before, and I think you
wow. I feel privileged.
yeah. No, I think they really would. So let's hear it all. This pre-show sort of like cut. What goes on? What's the process? How did you find it? Like you said 6 months, didn't you? So let's look at that time.
Yeah.
What's it like?
So the end of my building phase, I was like, yay, I can't wait to diet. You're embracing dieting for the first
Yeah,
time in your life, because I hadn't dieted for 2 years.
yeah.
So my brother gave me my calories. So just to put it in perspective, my building phase, at one point, I was literally hitting like 2,500 calories a day. I think at one point it actually went up to 2,600, and it was
Mhm.
this amount of food. He started me on 2,200, which is actually quite a decent amount. So
Mhm.
I'll be honest, as long as I'd logged that in the app MyFitnessPal and I was weighing my food, a lot of bodybuilders, they will eat the same foods every day. So I'll just like kind of sum up. Breakfast was like I'd make baked oats and whey. So it'd always be baked because I really wanted a sweet breakfast so that it would feel like I'm having a treat already, like first thing in the morning. So I would literally bake oats and whey with berries, put that in the oven. And then my lunch would be like either chicken sausages or chicken breast, always with rice, always with like a variety of like veg, carrots, broccoli. And then if I was training, I would always have to have a pre-workout meal. That would again be like maybe a banana and a shake, or sometimes it would be oats and whey and a banana. And then post, because again I was a teacher at the time, the only time I could train was at 6 o'clock, and then I would have my last meal, which was dinner, which would either be, at the beginning it was like you could have more high calorie foods like steak and salmon. By the end of it though, obviously my foods had to change, and that would always
Mhm.
be sweet potato. Yeah, you'd go from having like chicken sausages and steaks and salmon, but then when your calories are very, very low, I'd have to stick with like just chicken breast and prawns and things like that are very low calorie. So the first 3 months, I'll admit, my training never changed. It was still the same. I didn't feel I was on a diet for the first 3 months.
Wow. And
I think it's because as well, the process that my brother used, again, some coaches don't use such a more flexible dieting approach. Because my brother had done X amount of shows, he'd had different coaches, some that had been terrible, making him go on keto diets to bodybuilding and things like that. He learned from his coach who coached him for his shows, and it was the best. It was flexible dieting. I still had carbs with every meal, sweet potatoes, oats, rice. The only thing I couldn't do or I couldn't fit in rather, was just eating out. So I didn't eat out for 6 months. So that was hard. But because I knew it was a self-inflicted thing, I still went to birthday parties. I still went out to restaurants, but I never ate. I would have to like eat. It sounds so ridiculous. I'd be sitting in the car park of the restaurant, just eating my meal before I went in there. So the first 3 months were fine. I was eating the same foods every day, but it became the norm, I suppose, to just track everything. And it was only really, I would say, the last 2.5 months, which were the hardest. So my beginning calories were more or less like 2,200. By the end of the 6 months, they actually went down to 1,100 in that last week, which was, horrible. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin, because that's the nutrition side. And obviously you're on very low calories, but people will often think that the diet is the hardest bit. What's the hardest bit are all the consequences from having the low diet. It's not even, I want more food. It's all the other things that happen. I suffered with amenorrhea 4 weeks in. So I lost my period, and I lost it for a good 9 months. And it was very hard to get it back. And I'll talk more about that after. You are freezing all the time in those last 2.5 months, to the extent that I remember it was October. It was about 15, 16 degrees, and I was walking the dog. No lie, I walked out in a hat, scarf and gloves and a skiing jacket. And I on that particular day, I was getting weird looks from people because I looked like I was, going skiing. You're freezing all the time. Your mind becomes obsessed with numbers. Every day you're weighing yourself, and it does become an obsessive thing. And this is where I'm reminded of what my brother said 2 years prior. You're only going to view food as numbers. Everything is about numbers. And it is. You go on the weighing scales. Oh, why have I gone up by an ounce? Blah, blah, blah. And then, the good thing is my coach, my brother, he was like tracking everything. I was always on track. I was like dropping most weeks. Yeah, there'd be the odd occasion where I didn't. But that would take its toll on me mentally, because you'd be thinking all these things in your head. Am I lean enough? Am I on track? Am I doing this? You'd almost get like an anxiety around it. So you're not just weighing and tracking your food, but yourself. You're taking progress pictures that I'd have to send him every single week to check how am I looking, that sort of thing. And like no periods, feeling freezing all the time. You'd be counting down. I would literally be looking at my watch every few hours thinking, when am I going to eat? I'm starving. And it's that starving phase that is probably the last 4 to 6 weeks, the worst. You're dreaming about food. I was so obsessed with food, be dreaming about it. If I was awake and I had spare time, I'd be looking at food reels, food porn. I'd be looking through recipe books. I went as far as writing in my notebook all the foods I'm going to eat as soon as I come out of this. It's horrible, because it's very much a self-inflicted thing, but people don't understand what it does to people around you. My relationship that I was in at the time took its toll. I'll be honest and say it probably forever damaged it, if I'm being completely honest. The biggest cost was the change in my relationship. And especially for someone, and it wasn't his fault, that could never understand. Not many people can understand bodybuilding. No. It's one of those things, you only really understand it when you're in it. My best friend at the time would be like, it took her a year to tell me this after, but she said, when you were bodybuilding, I didn't recognize who you are. My ex-partner said, the spark in you has disappeared. It is one of the most selfish sports, and nothing else around you is important. And it's horrible to say, but that is how it is. I will go as far as saying your personality does change. Some people react very differently. Some people get very hangry, moody. I did get moody, but it was very much the opposite way, because I'm very talkative and lively and almost borderline ADHD. Like all the time, I'm always like just
a lot of energy.
All the time. I was so flat. I rarely spoke. I was quiet. It's weird how it completely changes your personality. And it's annoying, because you're looking at yourself in the mirror every day and you're like, wow, I've got a full on six pack. I look amazing. You know, you look amazing, but you can't even show it off because you have no energy. You're freezing all the time. So you can't even wear like cute crop tops. And I think the only time I wore like a cute crop top and like some shorts was when it was like 35 degrees in that September. But like, you don't enjoy it. And it's crazy how much of a cost it is. Your sleep is affected. You'd wake up at a ridiculous time because you're just so alert in the morning. You're so alert in the morning, but then by the afternoon, you're crashing, you're tired.
Mm-hmm.
It is by far, hands down, the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But without that, I wouldn't have written my book. I wouldn't have given up the career. So in terms of the positive side, so obviously they're quite negative. And I'm going to talk about post-show after, because I'll be honest, post-show is probably worse than being in it.
Yeah.
When the consequences, people think the consequences are when you're dieting and you're losing your period and you're not the same. Believe it or not, the consequences are 1,000 times worse after, I'll be honest. And I'll talk about that. But yeah, when you're in it, you're not who you are. But yeah, it's weird. But the only thing I will say, it gives you another level of confidence that you didn't believe existed.
Because you've done something.
Oh, 100%. And you know, if I hadn't have done that, I do believe I still would have been in teaching. I know I would have left it eventually, but I would have left it when I did, because that's an interesting one in itself about how I left teaching. But yeah, it gives you a confidence you never knew existed. It does.
And like you say, it's showing yourself that you're setting a goal. This is what I always say to my clients. This is why going to whatever it is, no matter how big or small that goal is, it doesn't have to be your bodybuilding or whatever it is. But if you say you're going to do something and you actually see the results from it and achieve it and get to that place, then you know that you can do what you've set your mind to. And I think that is like having that thought process in your head and knowing you can do that is just so empowering, isn't it? To get to that place. So, I mean, I definitely want to hear about the positive sides of it in a minute, because I'm sure there are some.
Yeah, there are.
Let's dive into kind of what was going on there. So there's a lot to unpick. So obviously, first of all, like, how did you find the eating out with eating in the car park and things before? Like, I just want, like, what did you order when you was there? What did your friends say? I think this is a hard part of fitness, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, if you are on, and this is just me being brutally honest, if you're on a fat journey and you've got so many weeks to get to a certain point and you want to drop a certain amount, and it might not even be show prep or whatever it is, you do need to make compromises sometimes. And I'm very much about that balance, but you've got to accept that if you want to have a balance, the journey is going to take longer. And I think that's the be all end all of it, isn't it? If you want to lose, say for example, you want to lose say 5 kg in 8 weeks, you're going to have to be strict and make sacrifices. So how did you navigate that with your friends? Let's do that one first. Like, how did you respond? What was...
Yeah. The interesting thing is, before I started the bodybuilding diet, that 6-month prep, I told everyone in my circle. So I warned them. I said, I'm letting you know I'm doing this for 6 months. So what it's going to mean. I'm still going to come to your birthday, but this is... So it was the point that I had to have that communication with my partner at the time, with my mum, with my friends, my close circle of friends. So they knew in advance what I could and couldn't do. But I didn't want it to... I mean, bodybuilding prep is a compromise, a life compromise on another level, definitely. So they knew in advance, but when I would go to the birthdays, I would literally order a black coffee in the restaurant. That's all I could have. Black coffee. I think I had so much black coffee. Or if my friend invited me round to her house and her partner was having a birthday barbecue, I would cook the barbecue, but I wouldn't eat the food because I'd already tracked my meal that day and I didn't want to then go back in it and then retrack it and then take my weighing scales there and then weigh it. It was just too much problem. So I would always take my Tupperware wherever I went. Every like family gathering, I would get people making fun of me. Like wide family members would take the piss basically. And especially towards the end when your your patience is gone anyway, for people to just be like at the end of the 6 months, why are you doing this? Your face looks gone. Why are you I'm like, oh my... I think once I snapped at a member of my family and I said, how does it affect you what I put in my mouth? I think I said it like that bluntly. And it's just, I don't need that. I don't expect your support of something that you will never understand. You don't understand what I'm going through. And that's why I suppose you do, to an extent, although I was going to all these social things and still seeing people, the only person that really understood me was my brother, because funnily enough, he wasn't only just coaching me for this, he was doing it with me. We actually competed in the
Wow.
same shows together that whole year. So it was, I was like, he's the only one that understands. So whenever I needed to project, he was there, and he was like, right, here's the solution. Don't worry, you know, da, da, da. And yeah, he was the only one that really understood. And as much as you love people around you, they don't understand. You will, you know, little things as well will make you hypersensitive to the extent, this is going to sound ridiculous. I was working late, or I'd nipped out the house, but I'd put my baked oats in the oven for my breakfast the next morning, because, you know, the level of preparation is a joke. I would often on a Sunday prep 3 to 4 days in advance. And I'd have, because again, you get a lot of brain fog when you're competing. So I'd have to put labels on everything, like labels and the macros on all the Tupperware. Once I left my baked oats in the oven, and my ex-partner, or my partner at the time, came home and said, he rang me, and I was driving home, and he said, Tash, don't freak out. I was like, oh no, what's happened? Your baked oats you left in the oven, they're like destroyed, like they're burnt to, like I'd ruined them basically. And I was like, oh my, when I say I freaked out, you know, to a normal person, they'd be like, you're actually crazy. This is the level of crazy that it does make you.
Yes.
If one thing has a slight imperfection, you lose it. I lost it. I was nearly crying. I nearly cried. I think I had like tears in my eyes, and I remember being hysterical. And then he was like, don't worry. And this is one of the good things about, you know, my ex. He actually said, don't worry, I've sorted it. Well, I said, what do you mean you've sorted it? He goes, I went into your MyFitness. He actually went as far. This is actually really sweet. I know, bless him. He went as far as going into MyFitnessPal account, saw the ingredients, because he said, and the numbers, he goes, I've done it. I did it all. I was like, what? I said, with the amounts? He goes, I went into your MyFitnessPal. I looked at the graph, and I was like, wow, that is like another level of
That's so supportive, isn't it? Yeah.
He was on the whole, he was supportive. Unfortunately, towards the end, it did change our relationship for the worst. But he was as supportive as he could have been. Like, definitely, that's like another level of support that he actually did. But they're being in hysterics.
That yeah,
hard, people around, really hard.
100% the emotions. That's something like I'd love to touch upon actually, because when I went through the stage where I had sort of like the disordered eating habits and I was not eating enough, and this is not me being, it was never for a prep or anything like that. But honestly, like me as a person, I was so emotional. Like I would be so sensitive, so sensitive. I would cry at the slightest thing. You know, like you said, if something went like, why is it a big deal? You can make another batch of oats.
Yeah.
Like, not a problem. But like that's you looking at it now, like healthy. Like, do you know now me if something goes like that, I'm like, oh wow. But like then, the tiniest thing went wrong, and I would have a meltdown about it. And it is because you're just not thinking straight, are you? Like the emotions are there, and you're not thinking straight around everything that's going on. And like you said, you're very irritable. Someone says something to you, you respond in a different way. It's just you change as a person when you're not eating enough food. Like it's massive, isn't it? It's absolutely huge. And yeah, like I can't even imagine how hard that was. So this really interests me because at the time, I don't think I'm not sure because I was on the pill at the time, and do you know where it gives you a period? So I'm
Yes, it does.
periods, whatever, like real periods at the time. So
Yeah.
like as far as I know, I never lost my period, but I think maybe if I wasn't on the pill, maybe I don't know if I would have. Um, but when did that happen? Sort of how long was that prior to the show that you noticed that? What were your calories on that sort of hit?
When I lost my period, 4 weeks into the diet.
4 weeks
4 weeks,
in.
and I'd only lost
Wow.
4 pounds. I'd lost 4 pounds. My calories at the time were about 2,000.
Wow, and you lost your period at 2,000.
I know. And do you know what's interesting, Chrissie? In life, I know, and from doing diets post show, like healthy diets, if I get under 100, if I weigh under 140 pounds, I always lose my period. I actually know the number now. When I tried it again years later to get under 100, as soon as I get under 140 pounds, I lose it. It's
That's so
mad.
interesting.
Nothing with amenorrhea. people think that you have to be super lean, super shredded. Believe it or not, when you have like hypothalamic amenorrhea, it doesn't actually matter. Like it depends on the person, and it depends, like, for whatever reason, me getting under 140 pounds, I always lose my period.
Wow, and that's your
It's bad.
body's way of telling you that that's your healthy weight.
Yeah, I know it is. Yeah,
More than
yeah,
anything, that's so interesting, because I think a
yeah,
lot of people that come to me as clients, they're so under eating. So it's so interesting for you to say it was 2,000 calories for you.
yeah,
So your healthy calories must be around
yeah,
2,200.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's so interesting. So you lost your period sort of 4 weeks in, so that's quite
Mm,
early on, and you continued with it, like you knew that would be part of the process. You
yeah.
carried on with the dieting. And when did you start seeing? So let's talk through sort of like the process with the calories. When did they start getting really low? Was it sort of just before the show?
Yes, so I would say a few months, for many months I was on just under 2000. So I started off around, yeah, 22. The majority of the first couple of months were probably about 1900, and then in the main mid bulk of it I was probably on 15, 1600.
Yeah.
That was I was on those for quite a while, I remember. And then it was only until the last few weeks, I would say the last 3 to 4 weeks, it went down to 1400. And then in that last week, when you're doing what's called a peak week, it went down to 1100. So 1100 was in that last week only. But the majority of the time, I would say it was probably around, like, yeah, 1500, 1400.
And this shows how important your bulk phase was, because and this is what I always say to clients, your
Yes.
maintenance calories, because you were eating 2,600, two
Yeah.
thousand seven hundred, or whatever it was,
Yeah.
your maintenance calories will be so much higher. Now, if you had not done that phase, you would have
Oh,
put your calories down way
yeah.
earlier,
Yeah.
sooner than what that was.
Yeah.
That would have been your maintenance. And this is what, like with me now, my maintenance calories are about, I'd say about, probably send to you about 2,300, two thousand
Yeah.
four
Yeah.
hundred.
Yeah.
And like I don't track, like day to day, I don't track it.
Yeah.
I do.
No,
I
not
have
why
for this,
anymore.
no, but I have for this shoot started.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm so glad I've done it, actually, because I've not done a proper dieting phase in a while, probably
Yeah.
since summer. And it really puts me in my client's headspace of, okay, I need to do this, this, and this. And yeah, it's so interesting. But I always think like having that building phase is so important, because
Sorry.
my calories are probably on about 1,900 now.
Yeah, that's
And
good. That's still good.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm losing weight with that, and it's quite nice. It's not a bad amount, that
Yeah.
it's not too bad. But if I had not done that original bulk initially, my maintenance calories wouldn't be sitting so high,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it would have, been it's so much harder, isn't it? To
Yeah.
do that.
And I think that's what, and if we're thinking about, the average female that's thinking of doing a fat loss phase, my biggest advice would be, what are you actually having at the moment? And in some cases, it's actually important for the woman to realize that they're going to actually have to do a reverse diet before they want to diet, like you said,
Yeah,
because otherwise it's like,
100%.
you can't really put someone on like 1100 calories or even 12.
No.
Like that 1100 or even that's just ridiculous. And it's like, and I strongly believe, if a woman especially wants to do a fat loss phase, your body needs to be in the best position to be able to succeed in it. And
100%.
I know, like, a lot of people on Instagram and things that will be like, it's now or never for dieting. I actually disagree. Your body needs to be in the best position to be able to diet, because to diet is a massive stress on your body. No matter what you say, your body scientifically, biologically, is always fighting against dropping weight, which is why everyone has their body fat set points. So it's kind of like, a woman needs to make sure that her body is in the best position and ready to diet. Otherwise, if they're already sitting on like 1,200 calories, forget it. What, you're going to go to 800 for you to
Yeah,
lose weight?
it's
It's actually really sad. Yeah. Do you know what? I think women need to really think about, their goals, like, seriously, to put
oh
yourself, like, it's not impossible, but they're going to have to do some work
yeah.
if they want to drop weight again. I've had this conversation with so many women at my gym.
Mm,
It's really sad. But one woman I spoke to recently, oh, she did amazing in whatever she did. She's just a member at the gym, but she was telling me how she lost 4 stone, but she will put on weight now eating 800 calories, 800,
wow.
and
That's
she's still got another 2 stone to go. She was saying,
That's
and
it's not no
then,
joke.
and then I was like, I had to say something, and I was saying, look, I'm not your coach or anything, but my advice would be you need to do a serious reverse diet before you think about dropping it. If you're putting on weight on 800 calories, like what?
That's crazy, absolutely crazy. It's just, yeah, and that's what people need to know, that fitness is a longevity thing. This is
100.
why majority of my clients, I sign up for 12-month period,
Yes.
because it is so much better for you, for me to work with you for that whole journey and look at where we're going, building it into your lifestyle. Life is going to happen. It doesn't have to be this quick 3 month,
Yeah, no, 100%.
whatever it is. Um, but no, it is so important, isn't it, to realize that
Yeah.
the long parts of it is. I think, like you said, the brain fog is massive, isn't it? So,
Oh,
like doing this, it's just reminding
honestly.
everything.
Yeah,
Like I,
yeah, 100%.
yeah, I mean, like I mean, it's only been a few weeks since I've started this, and like
Yeah,
in the evenings, I'm more tired. Like I
yeah,
can tell, my
yeah,
energy is not there. And like you start to, like, your brain just doesn't. You have to really think about
it
things,
doesn't.
don't you? And I think that's any fat loss phase. So I can't even imagine
Yes,
it wouldn't
yeah.
be.
And I'm just thinking back to when I was at the worst, and I'm talking again, it was the last 4 to 6 weeks. The brain fog was so bad, I would genuinely forget where I parked in the car park. And I
Yeah,
remember once just circling a massive car park, I was like, where have I parked? Where have I parked? You'd forget to do things, you'd make silly mistakes. Like I remember being a teacher and making stupid mistakes with
don't know how you're
numbers.
teaching.
Oh my gosh, like, I don't know how I did it. Yeah, the brain fog is so weird. And I remember my brother telling me in advance, he was like, have you gone to your zombie state yet? Like when you feel like a zombie.
Yeah,
And I was like, what does that even mean? And then when I got there, I'm not joking, someone would be talking to me, and I'm not there, like you're not
mm,
present. It's such a strange phenomenon, but I actually understood what he meant when he said that you're like in a zombie state, because
so
you're
interesting.
there but you're blank. That's the only way I can use, because there is no energy. I remember telling someone to stop making me laugh a few weeks before my show, because I was like, I have no energy to laugh, please don't make me laugh. Like it was that bad.
Yeah,
Even, and other things you don't notice about what you're doing, you're forever trying to lean on stuff like this
yeah,
because
yeah,
your body is so battered
yeah.
because the only energy you have, which you don't even have a lot of anyway, is just getting through those 4 weight training sessions a week. On top of that, I'd have to hit 12,000 steps a day. On top of that, I'd have to hit 45-minute, on top of that, 45-minute treadmill incline walks. And
So
how bad has it got? Only that.
yeah, that's just
Only
wild. It's
that.
absolutely wild. I mean, it's been so interesting, this has. Let's talk quickly before we go about sort of your post, because I know you wanted to touch upon that, the post prep, um,
Oh,
what
yeah.
happened. So tell us a little bit around that. What's
So
um
show day is amazing, and after when that's done, you feel the biggest sense of accomplishment. And I was even
yeah,
more happier because I'd quit teaching by that point. I'd already like stepped into starting like PTing and everything else. You're on a high for about 2 weeks, and then it hits you. The struggle is harder than actually being in the diet itself. You're basically you're learning how to eat again. You don't know how to eat. The binge eating disorder, which I'd had way before bodybuilding, returned, but at the
mm,
greatest intensity
yeah,
out of the whole time I had it my whole life. Like it was mad. Like it, when I was on my off season, it went, when I trained for X amount of years, and then it only came back post show, because what people don't understand, because your hunger hormones, your leptin and your ghrelin, are not working efficiently. My sex hormones are not working efficiently either. So like I don't even have my enough estrogen. Your hormones are so messed up that I remember calculating, I ate an 800 calorie meal, healthy meal, fiber, rice, chicken, and you're starving. I was starving straight up.
that's right.
I was like, I've had 800 calories. How am I start? Like, it was like I'd never eaten. When
Mm.
it entered me, it was like, and the binge eating was the worst it has ever been in my whole life. It was horrific.
Oh no, I can
Then it
imagine.
turns you into an evil person. You lie to people around you. You're hiding wrappers under bins. You're going out to petrol stations to just eat, and like eat in your car. Yeah, in my book, I talk in a lot of detail about how bad that was, but it was. And what's even worse is that when your body then changes and reverses, and you lose your six pack, and you lose your amazing perfected, sculpted look. you don't know who you are anymore. I didn't know who I was. I felt it was my imposter syndrome was at its highest, you know. And I was like, I'm in the fitness industry and I don't even look like I work in the fitness industry. I don't even look like I ever competed. I piled on 35 pounds like that.
Mm,
That was more than what I'd even lost for the show. So you
yeah,
can imagine in a space of like a month or two, it was all back on and some.
yeah.
And the binge eating was just, oh,
The
it was
body
something I
freeze.
never wish upon anyone. I don't wish that upon anyone. It took me the best part of a few years, I would say, genuinely, to actually fully recover. I've only been fully recovered over the last couple of years. I would say, like, fully recovered.
Yeah. And do you know
It's
what? And I really appreciate you sharing the side of bodybuilding that I think is so glorified, isn't it, on social media?
yeah,
So
it is.
easily glorified because these people are looking incredible.
Yeah,
It's the best shape of your life. Like
yeah, yeah.
it's
The peak, literally.
it's like that is it. Like that, you're not going to get any better than that. And I think that's what's very much glorified on social media. And people
Yeah,
don't know that I didn't know the extent of going to it before having this conversation with you. And it's just interesting to hear how you've got to that point and sort of what's
yeah,
gone on. I mean, it's just been so incredible this podcast, like listening to
yeah.
your
It's been
journey. But yeah, tell people around your book then. Where can they find you and where can they
so
find your book? When is it out?
yes. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm at Natasha Kostalas. That's Kostalas, in case no one can ever spell my surname. My book is currently being traditionally published by Kingsley Publishers. It will be, I'm guessing pre-orders might be a month before, but it will be fully released in September. And of course, it will be on all my socials when my publishers get back to me on an actual release date. They've just told me September, so I've no idea when. But yeah,
Mm.
I'm really looking forward to people seeing and understanding the full extent, because it not only spans like the bodybuilding journey, but way before, like the entire thing, basically, you know, the post show, everything. And I hope it opens people's eyes to what the sport really is like. And you know what, it is one of these, my memoir is something that I just want people to learn from. Because even if you've never competed in bodybuilding, or even if you're not into fitness, my agent who's not into fitness, she said, her own words were, the reason why this book is so special is because you don't even have to be in fitness to understand it. It
Yeah.
covers everything from mental health, binge eating disorders, body dysmorphia,
Mm.
relationships. I delve into a lot about, you know, with my ex-partner and, you know, all these transitions in life. So yeah, I'm really hoping it helps a lot of people as well.
I'm excited to read it. I've read a little bit of an
I'm
extract.
so excited for you to read
So
this.
it is. And when I say like it's so raw in terms of your opinions and emotions around things, like even this conversation we've had today, like we can really see you're not masking anything. And
No,
you're really putting yourself in this very vulnerable situation. And I think when people do that, it's so incredible because they can relate to your story, see what you're going through. And even in this conversation today, like I feel like I've learned so much and it just makes you evaluate, think about everything.
no.
So yeah, I mean, thank you so much for coming on.
Chrissie, thank you.
No, it's been so
It was
valuable.
great. It was great.
And like honestly, I think if people could just share, make sure that you are following Natasha over on social media because she's got her own journey, her own page. She's sharing bits and bobs, and you can hear a little bit more around the book when it's out. But yeah, thank you everybody for listening, and thank you, Natasha,
Thank you.
for being
Thank
on. And yeah, thank you so much, guys. But we'll catch you all on the